I did 39 years, 3 months, and 18 days in total. Started out in May of 1976 with the Army Reserves out of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And then from there, I did my initial basic training in AIT at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where I was a communications radio repairman, is what I graduated for. Come back home and went back to work construction, which I'd done, and then still did my weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. Then in 1977, I met my wife, and I then met a man, it was Colonel Snyder, who was head of the Maryland, was a high up in the Maryland National Guard, and they needed some full-time personnel. So in 1978, I transferred to the Maryland National Guard. So from there, I did 32 years there with the Maryland Guard. From 78 to 80, I was full-time as a GS employee and worked at both at the Frederick National Guard Armory, and then that was the one on 2nd and Bench Street, and then from there I went to Albany, Hagerstown, so kind of bounced around quite a bit. At that point, got aggravated and said, "Now I'm done, with being that." I stayed with the Guard, but a year later I got on AGR, which is active duty with the National Guard. So I spent 6 years on active duty between up at Highfield, Maryland, with the unit up there, signal unit. And then from there, I went back to work again in construction and stayed there from pretty much most of my, career with the Guard. And throughout then, come 2000, I decided that at that point I figured that, I'd done 25 years. It was actually 2001. My daughter graduated from college, so I didn't want to keep missing her games. She graduated from high school and went to college and got an NCAA scholarship to go play field hockey and lacrosse. So I didn't want to miss her games. So I decided it was time for I was going to go ahead and retire. Well, that August of 2001, I submitted my paperwork for retirement. And then 9/11 happened, and I told them to tear it up, and I couldn't retire at that point. So from then, 2002, we were deployed for Homeland Security at Fort Meade, Fort Myers, McNair, and then up at Fort Dix. I spent a lot of time up there doing a 15-month deployment. And at that point, to come back to be National Guard again, went back to work. I was working at that time for Day and Ryan Builders, and went back to work for them until 2006. And then got a call that I'm being deployed. Well, actually, I thought I was going to Katrina in 2005, but then they said no. After I'm almost ready to leave to go down to New Orleans, they come in and said, "No, you're being pulled. You're being deployed next in 2006 to go to Guantanamo, to Cuba." So being a communications NCO, I figured I was going down there to work with the communications on base and that kind of stuff, to what I was used to. But I guess I skipped a little spot there. In the first deployment, I was a master sergeant in E8 with the military. And then while I was deployed, I got promoted to sergeant major, which was a senior rank. I couldn't go any further, that was it. So from there, figured that when I went to Gitmo, I was just going to be the communications. I'll get to Fort Lewis, Washington, and they said, "No, I'm the operations sergeant major for the prison." So I ended up 15 months down there with the prison at Guantanamo. And to me, that was probably my biggest, accomplishment, I would say.